Hello, everyone, friends, fans, family. This is Straight No Chaser. I am one of your hosts, Auntie Lynn. I'm here with Miss Lovely Leslie Montgomery,
Hmm.
author extraordinaire, multiple books. Uh, I am here with Miss Auntie Helen J. Collier, worldwide renowned author.
Mhm.
Um, we are going to talk about seriously the importance of education tonight. Education in the Black community, in the community as a whole, worldwide. We're going to talk a little bit about our contributions to education, but I'm not going to hold you long. We have a special presentation by Miss Leslie. And so we're going to get started with her. Leslie, you can come on in. Hopefully they'll sit down, learn you something. They'll learn something. They'll engage. They'll like. They'll comment. They'll subscribe. They'll share, and they'll give us some feedback.
Hmm. Okay, well, thank you, Lynn, for the lovely introduction. This is a subject matter that is very near and dear to my heart, not only because of my own life experience, but because I now know at the tender age of 53, almost 54 next month, how important education is, right? When I thought about, speaking on this topic, naturally I thought back to my ancestors, those who I will never know the features of their being. I will never know their personalities or anything, but I do know my grandmother. I do know my mother. I do know the elders in my family who, were not too far removed from how difficult and hard it was to get an education. And having my family members coming up here by way of Mississippi, and in the early 40s and early 20s, as I'll say, my grandmother was born, and her oldest sister, who died at 99, um, they they lived through and experienced the struggle and the fight that was before them in order to get an education. And I know that a lot of our people died trying to learn how to read, how to write. And so, um, as a woman today who had the opportunity and who took hold of the opportunity to further my education when a very life-changing event happened to me, which was the 25 years of incarceration. I appreciate and I can look at that situation through a different lens. Having two grandchildren, one who is in school, one who struggles tremendously, and it breaks my heart. Um, I can be a vessel that can draw out, which brings me to this point. When we think of education, and Lynn, you as an educator, Miss Helen, you having, worked with children in your career, the word education, the root of that word is to draw out, right? Educe. Teachers are put in place to to pull out of and to draw out of us, whoever us may be at that time, whatever the student is, whether you're a student in life, a student in school, college, whatever. Um, their job is to pull out what already lies within. And that's what I love. That's what gives me the chills right now, because it's like I think that as a people we do not give ourselves enough credit. We do not understand how much we have already within. And it is just um like I have philosophy of the lock and key mechanism. There's a key to every lock, you know. So whether that is the key is a teacher or a person not in or out of the classroom, there's a key to every lock. There's a key that will draw out of us whatever it is that already lies within. And so I think of so many things when I think about how important it is to continue as mothers, as sisters, as aunties, to draw out as friends, to draw out of our peers, our children, what already lies within, to educate. Um, um, it's just so important. And when I was thinking about the subject, I also thought about all of the Black inventors. I had studied at one point um, how many Black people have invented many things that now have been appropriated by other people, who take credit. You have, and I have written down, and excuse me for having to refer to my notes, but
Oh,
Lewis
take your
Latimer,
time.
the light bulb, something that every person in the world, when you think of the globe, uses a light bulb. That was an invention by a Black person. So think of his parents. Who pulled out, who drawed out of him whatever it was, whether it was the creative gene to allow him to really start thinking about how can I illuminate the world, you know? Think about Madam C.J. Walker, who helped all of us Black women. That girl, know why I got a scarf on now. Don't play with me. But all these great products and the pressing comb and things that we to this day still use. Think about Garrett Morgan, who created and invented the three signal traffic light. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many beautiful, brilliant Black minds out here. But past that, I think about their parents and their grandparents.
Yes.
And when you think about their parents and grandparents and the struggle they had, but they still somehow was instrumental in the drawing out of, educating their children and encouraging their children at the same time. Because if they weren't, where would we be? We wouldn't have the light bulb. We wouldn't have, the traffic signal that everyone in the world uses. Like these things are so important. And so Marie Van Britten, she invented the home security system, the two-way camera. Like these are just a few examples of I'm talking about us. But at the same time, I'm talking about the world, our children, our grandchildren, um, educating them, pouring into them, but understanding that it's not just pouring into them, it is drawing out of them the thing that lies within them. And that's where I feel like we have to remind ourselves how important it is, you know? You as an educator, Lynn, you, Miss Helen, um, working with children, me being I don't want to say a victim because I'm a survivor of a system that was put in place to crush me, to break me down, to make me feel like, I'm not worth anything, that I'm not definitely not worth a higher education. But yeah, not so, right? So I want to bring to the table tonight the importance of continuing to pour into our children, our grandchildren, our peers, our friends, even our parents. Nobody's ever too old to learn something, and you can learn something from a baby. And so I want to talk about it. And I hope that our listeners. I hope that whoever is tuning in will really um, be able to sit back and really look at this thing from a different lens and just really understand that it's important for us to never give up, no matter what the circumstances are. No matter if you have a child, a grandkid who's not in school, who's going to school, who's not really focusing, we still have a responsibility to pull out those things that lie within. So I want to hand it over to whoever wants to jump in and let's talk about it.
Well, as Leslie say, I have worked with children for a long time. For 26 years, I worked in Seattle at the Juvenile Center with young children who are incarcerated as a juvenile officer, for those
Mm,
that come into detention and stay there. And it was important to me to give them an understanding. Because to me, it seemed that they were taking their education lightly, and that really delving into it, where they go to school or they wouldn't go to school, and I set them down, and we'd have different sessions. I said, education started for our ancestors the moment they entered this country as slaves,
mhm,
and that's our ancestors. Those of you who are the race that I am. Their first education wasn't about reading or writing. It was about learning how to survive
mm,
without being killed. Their next education and learning came with the realization that the people who had enslaved them in this country did not want them to be educated. Can you imagine that? There was
mm,
a time when you really couldn't even be educated, couldn't even learn. It was against the law. They could be killed if it was discovered that they were reading or writing or learning to do that, or someone was teaching them. Even after the Civil War, when Jim Crow laws were enacted, there was they would watch you closely to make sure, and even in your conversation, that you weren't hadn't learned something,
mm,
because they were aware of how important it was to read and write. Our ancestors went underground to learn the in secret places where white people couldn't see them, to learn to read and write. The only people out of our race allowed to read and write back in the day
mm,
I learned of at that time were ministers, preachers,
mm,
who were seen as non-threatening. My grandfather was a traveling preacher. Born around 1890, he was allowed to read. They didn't mind him learning to read and write, but he always carried a Bible when he was out and about. In his home, my mother said, and I saw that from him as an old man, there were over 300 books on science, chemistry, agriculture, and
mm,
works by great leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and others who were trailblazers in their lifetime. But he knew that the white people were not coming into his home. They would just see him on the street, and he'd have his Bible in the hand. And then if he said anything,
mm.
they read the scripture. He'd read a scripture to him or speak a scripture to him, and went on about his business. They smiled and they were happy. And isn't that something?
Mm,
And he was a very, so not only was he educated, but he was wise,
mm,
because he knew the times and he knew what he had to do to get through it. And around 19 in the 1940s, when we were allowed, in the late 40s, when our parents and grandparents was allowed to attend, get an education, the schools were poor and the books outdated. And so what they was learning was absolutely minimum. They might be able to read a little bit. Some of them could knew numbers, but they didn't know how to write a letter or how to sign their names on things. So that caused them to be cheated a lot of times out of the resources. And as they were sharecroppers, when they were should have been paid, they were told that they needed to be paying. And
mm,
and so they realized that education was their way out and the only means they had of survival in this country because everything had been taken from them. It was so amazing. In 2008, I took my mother, a Louisiana raised woman, to see her great grandson graduate from a Southern white school in Villa Rica, Georgia. I watched tears roll down her eyes. While it was nothing new by then and that was happening, her memory always lingered in the times when learning for blacks were not permitted, and it was
Wow.
the hard things, the way they had to hide and secretly not allow any person to see them with the book because somebody might tell. Or
Yeah.
have a young child
Wow.
come and read to them because they couldn't read or write. The
Mhm.
importance of an education, a lot of people kids would say to me until I sit down and really explain to them the importance of what and how we overcome and what we had gone through to get an education. They didn't realize the value of what they were just dismissing, and what they thought was invaluable was not valuable for them at this time. And so when they went to school, they knew that Miss Helen was gonna be right there. They better not get in that class and start clowning and have their head dead because we went through too much. Our ancestors went too much
Yes.
to get us where we are today. We didn't just get here
Right.
for the love of our enslavers. We got here because of what Leslie is talking about. Learning how to survive when survival seemed impossible. All the inventors and the people and the things that have done so many things. We have to be proud of ourselves. And I'm here tonight to let you know and please, I know kids nowadays do not take education seriously, but as their parents, you go back to history and
Yeah.
let them know that they didn't just jump out of a hat and they can get it whenever they want to because
Right.
it is very
Right.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Miss Helen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Both on both of you guys' part. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you all both kind of spoke to the informal education, things that were just inherent, things that you had to learn because you had to survive. You guys both kind of spoke to that. But Leslie, you were talking about the parents and, what they instilled in their um, children. And I've always said for a long time, like by the time kids get to kindergarten, everything that they learned is from life experience or what their parents have taught them or whatever they you still have kids going to school saying like, oh, my name is boo boo. You be like,
Right.
Your name is Jonathan," what I mean?
Right.
But some parents are not teaching the kids like your first name, your last name, how old you are,
Yeah.
your birthday, things like that. That's education too, right?
Yeah.
um and so when you were talking about instilling things into your kids, education, bringing them up, so that they have this confidence that they can teach and learn, or they can be a scientist or, a composer or whatever, it's so important to have
Yeah.
that structure and to have that support,
Mhm.
because sometimes you got to borrow somebody else's belief until you believe it yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, with the, me being an educator, I started out just kind of thrown in the classroom, really, but once I was there, I was like, oh, this is a work that needs to be done, and the way that I teach children to read is to say something about them because we all know kids are narcissistic, right? I mean, they are, they just are. But
Okay.
so, like, when I teach them to read, I start out with, like, my name is, and then their name, because you can switch that sentence around, right? My name is, or you can ask a question, is my
Right.
name is Leslie. Is my name Leslie? Is Leslie my name?
Right.
Right? And and then you start adding little things like I can do this or that or whatever. And then, like with my own kids, I told them once they learn to read, they can read anything in the house.
Mm.
Y'all, let me tell you how they were sitting down absorbing them books.
Okay.
They
I know
wanted to
that.
read everything that I was reading, but I was like, a promise is a promise,
Right.
But,
Okay.
and they are all pretty much educators now, too.
Yeah.
You know? But, excuse me, Marva Collins. So you were talking about, kids not having the courage or the, belief system or
Right.
whatever. And Miss Helen, you spoke to that too. And Marva Collins, you guys know Marva Collins?
I don't.
She's she was an educator. I'm not going to speak to whether I'm not sure she's still here or not. I believe she is, but she started a school in her home in Chicago. I think the south side of Chicago. And her
Mhm.
belief was that every child can learn.
Mm.
And she started a school. Everybody was thinking that she was crazy because they didn't do recess. They were
Mm.
there to learn and they learned all day. But but they had
Uh-uh.
fun with it. But she didn't do traditional, like, okay, this week we're gonna learn synonyms and antonyms, and next week we're gonna do homonyms. The way that she built her lessons is every subject was kind of in every lesson. Anything you can learn through reading.
Mm.
So um, she would tell the kids the sounds of the letters, but she might tell them the sounds of the letters in words that they haven't heard before. So then they would
Mm.
have to, research the word, give them the meaning of the word, tell them how to use it in a sentence, syntax and structure and
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh. Look, when you guys get a chance, look up some of
Marva
her videos.
Collins.
She has some Marva Collins, yes. I think there's a somewhere out there. I know I've seen it before, but there's a 60 minutes interview with her talking about her beliefs in the education system and how kids, because she was saying that in her neighborhood that she grew up in and she was raising her kids in, there were too many kids being left behind,
Mm.
Right.
right? And discarded and called retarded and things like that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
they could learn. And she was like, well, there's all these rap songs and all this music and stuff. And if they can learn that, they can learn some
Right.
Shakespeare. They can
That's
learn, you
right.
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
For
Uh-huh.
So,
sure.
yeah, so the school that I had started out working at, Zion Prep Academy, they
Mm-hmm.
adopted a lot of her education
Oh.
strategies and that, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, like even her system of teaching phonics was from,
Mm.
or their system of teaching phonics was from Martha Collins. The Martha
Wow.
Collins, I want to say it was Southside Prep, I think was the name of her school, but I could be wrong. But just
Mm.
you look her up. But
Yeah.
um, so in when I was taking my formal classes at Pierce College, and I think it was our intro class, they were talking a lot about different philosophers, and I was like, I don't want all these. It's fine to have Eric Erickson and all these different philosophers, but I want to talk about Marva Collins because here's someone you probably never heard of, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mhm.
And so in that was a teachable moment for educators,
Mhm.
right? To introduce someone they'd never heard of. That was
Right.
another,
Right.
um, it was just another way to introduce us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
said, we've created so many things and had so many different teachable moments and things stolen from us that it's
Mm-hmm.
time for us to start putting it back and being like,
Right.
no, let's educate some educators too.
Yeah.
Right.
So y'all
Right.
come over here talking
Okay.
about some Columbus and all them, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thievery of it all.
Right. Girl. Will
That's
never stop. It probably will never stop. But you make a good point. Let's bring them back to the originators, you know? Yeah. So, I want to I'm glad that Miss Helen, you made the point of before, like the say classroom or well, I don't want to say true education because educating is educating
Right.
yourself or
Formal
someone else. But
education.
the informal, like Lynn said, I love that you brought out that like before we were able to freely learn, like we were having to learn to survive. And when I say we, I'm talking about us, our people. Um,
Yes.
and it's not to exclude anyone else to our listeners. Let me put that out there. But as a Black woman and a woman who, you know, came from a woman out of the dirty South, I got to say, us, our ancestors, like
Right.
survival was key. There would be no education, there would be no educating if there was not survival, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I love that you brought that out. And I love that because it's like some things are inherent. Some things just naturally come because that's what we naturally do is it's like the fight or flight. It's like the um survival instinct, you know? If
Yes,
you were out
indeed.
in the wild or the wilderness and you do what you have to do. So I just like that you brought that out. And then I was thinking also um yeah, before the school system and all that even came into play, like how important it was to just um make sure that you were even existing so that you could get that education. I love that the the minister, the pastor would have his Bible though. You know, it's like, yeah, he was the on that's something else though that they would the white man is something else. And I don't say that to be I just it is just so crazy
Yeah.
that
It was
oh, because you
horrible.
see a pastor or a minister as a non-threat, he
Mm-hmm.
can have his Bible, he can learn to read and write because he is seen as a non-threat. Um, that's okay. But do
Yeah.
you think so little of him, of this man? Because let
Right.
us not forget that Black folks, men and women, men, of course, before women, because you know the man is the head,
Most threatening.
right? But wasn't even looked at as a whole human.
Yes.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like we could go
So,
so many different angles and so deep with this, but
oh
it's
yeah.
like, so you think so little of this Black man because he's a minister that he won't educate
No.
himself and then take it back to his family?
But see, we
That
weren't
that
as
then it in
yeah.
turn would take it to, and it would be a trickle effect?
That's right. Because we were learning, even those of us who couldn't read or write was learning the survival skills and learning the things. And when the ministers started a lot being allowed to, read the Bible, what else did they think? So my granddad and my mom said they have this Bible right there.
Right.
When he got in his house, he was reading about Plato. He was reading about Aristotle. He was
Yes,
reading about
yes.
W.B. He knew.
Yeah.
And what the people who were trying to keep him down didn't realize that he knew them better than they knew him.
Right.
And matter of fact,
Right.
it's better than they knew themselves
Yeah.
because he was playing. He
That's something that
yeah.
makes me even think like my granny, my mama's mom, Minnie
Uh-huh.
Lee, Houston, before she was a king, her dad, Stuart Houston, who
Uh-huh.
was a a pastor over his
Uh-huh.
own church. He was a
Uh-huh.
minister. Like that's my great grandfather. It made me think like that just opens my mind up. Like it made me question and wonder like what was he teaching his children? Um, and because he was a pastor and he knew I don't know that's something that really just gets my mind going. And but
What?
that's how people will underestimate us and
Yes.
our
Yes.
What
brilliance.
what gets to me is all the things they had to navigate, like agriculture and things
Right,
like that. So
Yes.
you're not allowed to read and write, but I want
right.
to keep my fields
Yeah.
certain way.
That's my
And so they
food.
had to, right. So they had
Yeah.
to learn all those things,
All
navigating
those
Measurements.
time,
things.
Like
time,
you said,
seasons.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Right.
you said, measurements. You better get
Yeah.
it right. And so how am I going to
Right.
get it right other
Right.
than watching? Like we're more observant
Mm-hmm.
than
Yes.
anything. That's why I be looking at little kids sometimes and I be like, they're not just watching you to watch you. They are learning
Mm-hmm.
That's
without
right.
Yeah. Yeah,
speaking, right?
definitely.
Observation.
Because
Definitely.
just think about how they had to navigate the stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you had to
Yes.
know when to plant, how you
Mm-hmm.
had to know when to pluck, how
Mm-hmm.
you had to know um
When to
to
let
keep
the
it.
land stay barren.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
you know
let
what
it
I
be.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
how much of a land? How am I gonna I'm gonna build this house? But I gotta
Mm-hmm.
know the measurements, but I can't read and I can't write
Right,
formally. So I'm
right.
gonna have to say about 15 feet.
Right.
It's really
Mm-hmm.
15 of John's feet. You
Yes.
know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean? Or
Right.
something, you know what I mean? Because you got to get it right. Or sewing or
Mm-hmm.
cleaning
Yes,
or, you know what
yes.
I mean? All the things that eventually became um, these inventions that you talked
Mm-hmm.
about,
That
Leslie,
they were
Mm-hmm.
right?
taken, that was taken from them.
Because something was up here and
Right.
I observed it. And then I said, okay, well, here, I can make this
Mm-hmm.
thing happen. Now look, so my things are worldwide and they never
Right.
got to see the magnitude of them educating themselves and others. And then
Yeah.
you think, I'm in here doing this work. I'm gonna have my daughters sitting here next to this sewing machine, you know what I mean, doing
Learning.
a thing or cleaning or whatever. I have
Yeah.
my son out here in the fields with me, I'm teaching my daughters about wrangling these horses,
Mm-hmm.
just
I
Yeah, and
was thinking
the people
about
who were
that.
doing that, the people
without
who were having them
formal.
do that were in the house. They were not doing any of that.
Right.
They
Right.
had
Right.
someone, they had them doing it for them. So
Mm-hmm.
even after slavery, if we had been given our land or whatever, we already knew.
Exactly.
Already knew,
Already
yes.
And
knew.
that's what they were so scared of because they had been for so long governing, you know,
Yes.
Yeah,
how we
Controlling.
were doing things, whether we was doing it for them or in in secret for our own family or our own children. And that's the sad thing. And that's what I love, Lynn, about I remember a conversation you and I had, and you were talking about you was teaching one day, you and Seven was doing something, and you was like, I'm teaching her today like how to do measurements. Like it's math is so many different, you can look at
Isn't
math
it?
through so many different lenses. And you were like, today, no, we're not, it's not like I'm saying what's 1 plus 1 or 5 plus 6. You were like, I'm gonna teach her today how to do measurements, like how
Right.
much this, what this looks like in a quarter cup of something, if it's liquid or if it's powder, and saying all that. It's like that's how I learned to cook, looking at my mom and my grandma and
Yes.
my daddy.
Yes.
I was talking to my daughter the other, like a few weeks ago, and I was like, matter of fact, honey, it was on New Year's, and I was like, I'm finna go up in here and I'm finna make these black eyed peas, and I'm
Woo.
finna go ahead and make this cornbread. And I don't cook
Uh-huh.
cornbread out of a box. I
Uh,
make it from scratch like my
oh
grandma
Lord.
did.
Let's
And
hear
she's
me.
talking about, well, mom, I need I need to read the direct. I said, read the direction. No, honey, you know by eye. You know how much flour and how much cornmeal, what a little dash of baking powder and
Yeah.
goes into. I said, no, but sweetie can get down in the kitchen. But I was like, I came up under the old law.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
because
Mm.
you were learning. That was
Yes,
an education.
Yes.
yes,
That
for
Yes.
took some
sure.
education,
And it's carrying me right now.
right.
You know?
Because you know nothing about how many bundles of this and how many.
Girl,
No, I
no.
I look at it.
And
Okay, this
eyeball
can be
it.
enough. How many people
Yeah.
come in? Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
But
and
that's
this,
all education, right?
yeah, it is. Yeah, it
Um,
is.
All
and
education.
if you don't learn formally or you don't teach your kids, they're gonna learn from somebody.
Yeah.
If we don't learn ourselves, I think the saddest thing is when you see somebody that you went to middle school, high school
Hmm.
with or something, and they be like, "Oh yeah, I ain't never gonna change."
Right.
like never expanding their mind. That's what I think of is just being stuck and being satisfied with being stuck. If
Right.
they are learning something, you either learning how to progress or you're learning how to be comfortable
Hmm.
with being just stagnant.
Right.
I equate that to the fact that working with the kids of the various ages, that sometimes it's when you don't know something and you don't know it, it's one
Hmm.
thing. When you don't know something and you believe that what you do know, and that is it, and you never can see past that.
Yeah.
It's like um hope is like seeing the sun, but some people don't believe in the sun, that there's hope unless they can see it.
Mm.
And so that way they stay in the dark all the time, because sometimes you can't see the sun, but you know it exists.
Right.
Sometimes,
Right.
and then let me say this to you, ladies. There are parents who don't have or not are uneducated, very
Mm.
uneducated. I remember
Yeah.
taking my daughter to school. Her and one of her classmates got in a physical altercation, and her father came up, and we got them broke up, and then we had to go see and so she was the teacher was telling him that his daughter didn't know a certain phonics or some things that he needed to sit down and teach her. And I'm
Mm.
looking at her and I said, she's an educator and she doesn't realize that this man is uneducated, even
Mm.
from a very small, tiny conversation with him. I
Mm.
knew that he was uneducated, and I knew that he and possibly his wife didn't have the tools to
Right.
help her, and that she was acting out mostly because of that fact. If she went to
Hmm.
school, she didn't have any help. If she went home, she didn't have any help because the teacher was expecting her to get the help from home that was not there. And
Hmm.
so there are teachers or educators who can teach their children even before they start school. They have
Hmm.
a head start on the children whose parents are not educated enough to give them that start.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that they're special ed. That doesn't mean that. No, that means that the playing field was not leveled.
Right.
And when
And
they
with
went to
the way that all these methods are too, that they're changing everything. It ain't just no 1 and 1 plus 2. I mean,
yes,
it's going up, counting up to get down. Got to get up to get down. All this
yeah,
stuff.
that's
Like,
changing it.
so I think that in the system, there needs to be parent education too,
There
right?
you go.
So
And teacher education
so
is
I
how to
can
teach.
learn what my kids are learning. And then I'll know how to teach to your methods, even though, like in my son, he, my oldest son, he could go from like point A to point F, right? And just have the answer. Or
Mm.
I'd be like, okay, well, what happened to B,
Mm.
C,
Okay.
D, and E, right?
Uh,
And so he would say, I don't know how to tell them how I got here. I just know
how to get
I
there.
worked
I
it out.
had a friend like that
Yeah.
actually, and she's
Yeah.
super smart, like, but with math, and she'd be like, she would do it in her head, and when we
Uh-huh.
were working towards our degree, the professor would be like, "But no, show me your work. How did you get there?" And she's like, but it was she that's just how her brain worked, right? But
Right.
with
Well,
all that being said, it makes me I don't want to forget to make the point to our listeners, to anybody that is connected to us, and um because I had a conversation with a friend, and I've had this same conversation probably like 4 times, and the most recent was less than a week ago. And she told me she had been tuning into our podcast, and she was like, I really love the content you guys are covering, like great topics and this, that, and the other. But she had told me that there's things she would like to learn and things that she wish she was better at and things, all of these things. But my message is like, it's never too late, number one. Number two, you know, life is a classroom. So
It is.
never feel like it's a burden on the person that you're asking help from. Like, oh, just ask. Open your mouth and ask. I think that more times than not, there will be somebody who would be more willing to, hey, yeah, I know how to do that, or yeah, I'll help you, or you don't know how to do it. Well, let's work through. Like, I just don't want people to give up on themselves or give up on their counterparts or their peers. Like, um, I just don't. So that's my message. I wish that, more people would be um more comfortable with saying, hey, I would like to get better at this. Hey, I noticed that you're good at articulating your thoughts and this, that, and the other. Help me with this. And so what's the old saying? Each one teach one, right?
Yes, for real.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Because a
yes.
lot of times people get embarrassed if they don't
Right.
know something.
Yeah.
And so for you to open up and be like, listen, I'm here,
Yeah.
really. And also, we don't have all the answers either.
Right. Right.
Nobody does. And so
Yeah.
if there's a word that we've never heard before, stop someone who's speaking to you and ask, like, hey,
Yeah.
what what does that mean? Or,
Exactly.
I don't know how to do this math. Please help me with that.
Yeah.
It's all about educating we have a responsibility to educate ourselves too.
Right.
But I bet your friend is good at a lot of things
Oh yeah.
that, the average person may not be,
Yeah.
you may just,
Yeah.
but we all are not
Yeah.
experts in every areas of our lives. If we had
Right.
it all figured out, there would be no need for us to be here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, if I can just interject right here when
Yeah.
when I'm listening to you young ladies working in the youth center, we work with the kids that foster children, all sorts. And a little girl came up to me, young girl, um, and she said, Miss Helen, she says, I'm the foster kid. I'm actually a foster. He says when I'm in the foster care, he says when my foster parents friends come out and they mention that I'm a foster child, she said I could
Mm.
see the look, the
Mm.
stares, the demeaning. Uh, I just feel it in my spirit, and they were right, because a lot of times when you first of all, a lot of young kids have children and they don't know
Yeah.
anything about education. They don't even think, because they've been living on the street, have been doing some of everything, and their parents was not even just getting. I had friends who hadn't yet got out of middle school, so it's good to believe, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time it's just not there for them.
Right.
I mean, and even for me, who I was sending my daughter to Outward Bound, and she was telling me no, she was not going to Outward Bound. I said, "You going to you understand?" But then there are people who need their kids to have something like that,
Yeah.
but they don't even realize, or they don't have any kind of a push or anybody that's going to be, because if you're an educator and a two family household, you know exactly what you want your children to do. Usually, we'll
Mm-hmm.
put it like that, under normal circumstances. But when you're living in, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of young kids coming up and living in hell because
Yeah.
their parents had lived that way, and their parents, they were, as a matter of fact, they were the parents of their parents.
Mm-mm.
So it's a lot. So I'm saying to my audience, don't look down on when you see kids that that you think don't deserve, because every child, every person deserves to be
Right.
cared about. And if
Yeah.
you see something that you can do for them or help them in some kind of way, just because they're doing something that you don't approve of, tell them something that you know that will help them, that they will approve of, and you will approve of for them.
Right.
11 children died in a horrific fire, and you know the people around them, that woman and her brats. That is something that they may not understand,
Mm.
but trust me, that comes back. And I want to make sure that what I do for a kid, that it's come back to me in a way that God knows that my heart was for that child, and to help that child in any way that I can, whether it's my biological child, whether I know the child, or whether I don't know the child. We have to be there for each other and not think just because you have a steady job, you have a kids that's already doing everything and you're so proud
Mhm.
of, and you're going to look at that some other kid and feel that just because they're not doing that, they're not worthy. I'm not on that one.
Yeah. I want to make one more point about, and I was thinking about it, the contrast, like from our ancestors of old, how they some died trying to get an education, some lied, some they did what they had to do. They survived to get it. And I don't think that the children today understand it, like you said, Miss Helen. But I would dare say, like, with the world, the state of the world today and how things are, I would think like in the next 20 years, you already pay for secondary school, like college education.
Right.
Our children, our grandchildren have the opportunity to get a free education and they squander it. And I would say in the next 20 years, it would not surprise me, God willing, I'm still living, if we are having to, as grandparents or parents, to pay for our children to go to primary school, period. And that's what I wish that these kids will understand today is like how much of an opportunity they have, like to just learn whatever you can learn. And if they ain't teaching it in the school, trust and believe they're teaching it somewhere. There's books you can read up on it, you can research there, man. There's
But
a way to learn about whatever it is that you're interested in learning. And so yeah, that's just
Child, my kids, a large part of my kids' um, childhood was spent in the library, Skyway
Mhm,
Library, Barnes
mhm.
and Noble,
Yeah.
Columbia Library. We was in there, you know.
Okay.
yeah, but
But
how
I
many
think,
kids
but
have
not,
not?
yeah, but not every child or every parent, does that for them kids.
Yeah, you're right.
The value of that, but when my kids look back and they talk about that, it was just great times, right?
Yeah.
But Leslie, I think it just stuck with me so much about you saying whatever you can, like, put your hand out,
Right.
help
Right.
somebody else. Don't
Yes,
just help
there you
yours.
go.
Don't
Yeah,
just
That's
learn for
true.
yourself,
for sure.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate that thought because sometimes we forget that it's not just about me and my four no more,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
There
So
you go.
Mm-hmm.
thank you
Yeah.
so
You're
much for bringing
welcome.
that out.
Yeah. And the
But
more people I talk to, like since I've been out, like friends and people I've known from back before and that I met, and um so many people continue telling me like how much they're inspired by what I've been through, what I've done, the book, the just different things. And I'm like, you know what, okay, thank you, you know what I mean. But like my pouring into myself, what that has done and what it means to other people who are connected to me, because I'm that kind of person who whatever I got inside, if you want it, you can have it. Hey, you
and
can have
I know that to be true. I
it.
know that to be true. I have been a recipient,
Yeah,
you know.
sure.
But
So
um tell us where we can find you, what you into, what's
yeah.
coming up for you next.
Um, well, I'm not like I don't know. I feel like I should have like something like Miss Helen, like you could reach me on my web page or something. But I'm just
That's
out
true.
here, You can hit me up on Facebook, Leslie Montgomery. It's spelled just like it's spelled here on the podcast. I am on Instagram at 1 Million Brown Girls, as the author of A Million Brown Girls, my book. And you know, yeah, that's where I do have an email address. It's lesleighmtg@gmail.com. You can reach me however you can reach me. Um, I have recently been getting confirmation on the direction of my next book, and I'm kind of getting really excited to start putting this thing together. And I hope that when it's done, that my people that support me now will continue to support me, and that they will find it to be very helpful, encouraging, and enriching to their life. So yes. Hashtag AMBG.
AMBG. Miss Helen, tell us where we can find you, what you up to.
Well, you can find me at HelenCollierMeow.com. That's my website. If you look behind me, you will see my business card. That is exactly what that is. It shows you all the books that I have written, about 9 selections, and you can also reach me at HelenCollier@yahoo.com. But what I would really love for you to do is to make a comment
Mm-hmm.
after you have listened to this. Share it with someone that you feel that needed to help them. And uh, for sure subscribe, because
Yeah.
we need to. You may come up and tell us something that we can discuss that you're
Mhm.
interested in. But of all means, don't forget us. Come back and see
I'm
us
glad you
again.
said that. Yeah, I've had some great conversations with people that call me and want to talk about the podcast, right? So I'm
Uh-huh.
like, you should engage in the comments because there are other community members who may have the same thoughts as you.
Mm.
So
Right.
hopefully people will start engaging in the comment section, not just calling me and being like, oh, I needed that,
Right.
So yeah, thank you. I'm Lynn Reese. Don't forget the Black Authors Appreciation coming up April 4th at Delancey's on 3rd in Renton. It's April 4th from 11 to 5 p.m. We'll have 13, 15 authors that you can sit down and learn something from. You hear their stories. You can see them up close and personal, get some autographs, support local authors and authors from abroad in the Black community. And what else do we have going on? Oh, um, Helen and I, and soon Leslie, are also members of AWA, the African American Writers Alliance. So check Africa AWA. You know their website? Is it AWA?
AWOL, what am I thinking at? It is AWOL, um, 19, let me see. I'm not, I don't,
Well,
wait a
I,
minute. I know
we'll,
I got it,
we'll
but
get it together, but it is
yeah, I got it,
African
but
American Writers Alliance,
yeah.
AAWA.
Yeah, you're right. If you just look that
So
up, and on Google it, it will give you
Google
the information you need. But for sure, I will definitely have that in check.
it.
Right.
All right. If all minds are clear, we're going to end this episode and we will see y'all in the community.